The sleeping God. Our story begins deep within the void, long before thought, form and even time, as we now know it. Deep within the void there was one God. This one God had no conception of anything at all, it just was. Void, some may have you believe, is nothing but a vacuum, a place devoid of all life, thought and form. However, that is not the case. Void is a place in which everything is latent, a sea of pure energy, or potential, with a desire to exist. There is many a sage, yogi, wise man, or woman, who can help you to emulate this sacred place. They will ask you to breathe in, hold it and then breathe out 3 times in succession, and then get you to concentrate on your body, emotional and mental faculties sequentially and then simultaneously. Once that is achieved, they will get you to still your mind, so it is free of all personal and mundane thoughts, and it is then that one can embrace that eternal resting place with your God consciousness. Of course, their reasons for reaching that state of being or consciousness are of no importance to our journey and us. So, we will not ponder on their wisdom more than we have to. All you need to know is that just as that place can and does exist even to this day, that place did exist before time and memorial. It is a place in between. All before your desires and thoughts, a place simply known by some as the gap, by others as awareness, but by all a higher state of being, or consciousness, and so it is then that deep within the void that the one God was in such a place, when suddenly a thought sprang into its mind. Awake. The one God was caught totally unaware, and did not have a clue how to respond to its primal thought. It was caught somewhere in between expectancy and its imagination. Then suddenly, it came again, and had 2 more thoughts with it. I am awake. Together the 3 thoughts marked the beginning of time, for this was the dawn of creation. After that a divine vision flashed within the God's mind's eye. The aftermath left the God with an emptiness that was sparked by desire, a need so deep that it was beyond compare. An overwhelming sense of loneliness sustained its integrity. That loneliness was the catalyst, that was the wisdom that no one or nothing was within existence. The one God, with its supernal panoramic vision, was suddenly aware that it was one of a kind, and that it was totally alone. However, deep within the recesses of its supernal mind the need for companionship could be solved. In order to attain companionship, the one God would have to go into a deep sleep, and forget its own existence, and dream creation into the void. The odyssey in which it was about to embark would take it on a journey through uncharted labyrinths, unfathomed enigmas, subterfuge, horror, untold pain, suffering and endurance. However, do not be fooled, for it is written that at the core of all agony is ecstasy, and this story is no different in that respect, my good friends. The quest would be full of improvisation and exploration, naivety and contradiction. It would possess an abundance of untold tales of heroism, an endurance of torment, anguish and sorrow. However, above all, at the journey's end, there was a place of places where unconditional selfless love did flourish, a place full of peace, joy, harmony, bliss and compassion. A place where infinite possibilities would unfold. A place where infinite perfected subtle beings flowed into. A place where companionship was full and plenty. A place where the one God and all of its creation called home. A place where the sleeping God could awake and claim its position as a supernal overlord within its own creation. A place where the one God could project itself and come down in person and walk among all of its creation. This place was named Eternal Matter, and it was in this place that every living being lived happily ever after. The bridge within eternity. Once upon no time, within eternity, there lived a being of light that one day on its many travels came upon a bridge that crossed a perilous canyon. On the other side of the canyon, there was a strange majestic land constructed out of eternal matter. The being could plainly see that the bridge could not support all its weight at once. It could also feel deep within its heart that this land was where it truly belonged. So, it sat at the edge of the canyon and pondered on how to make the crossing. Then, out of nowhere at the foot of the bridge there appeared a sign, and written on the sign in distinct lettering was a message. It read, "To all that cross this bridge you are granted one wish. However, be cautious how you spend your wish, for however you cross this bridge, is how you shall have to remain throughout all eternity." Knowing that the bridge could not support its full weight all at once, it used its wish to dissipate, and then reformulate itself into many constituents. The being of light was transformed into the strong nuclear, the weak nuclear, the electromagnetic, the gravitational forces, dark matter, dark energy, plus a whole bunch of quarks and electrons that were all gelled together with the Higgs boson wave and particle to form the space-time continuum commonly known as the universe. The universe was set afloat upon an infinite ocean. That ocean was within the space-time continuum. That ocean an unlimited supply of boundless living potential, pure energy of which the subatomic strings were made that formed and governed all the particles and everything that was within the cosmos. And it was in this form that the being of light eventually and successfully made the crossing home. The Eternal Bear Story. Once upon no time, there was an eternal formless bear that wandered throughout eternal formlessness. Then, one day it wandered in a different direction. At first, bang. Then when the cloud began to settle it saw stars. It looked amongst the stars, and it saw galaxies. It looked within the galaxies, and it saw planets. Next, it thought to itself, so many stars, galaxies and planets, but only one of me. Then it thought to itself, who and what am I? Then, with the same energy that it had been creating the whole universe out of, because it was all its mind anyway, it smashed itself into myriads of forms and then scattered it into different times and locations all throughout the universe, where it was to become you, me, us and we, looking through the many forms of life. Embraced by the light. Once upon no time in a land of plenty there was a force, an energy, an entity, and it lived forever and ever. One day it decided that it longed to have children. So it gathered up its creative forces, and it manifested life deep, deep, deep into the oceans. After a time, it decided that it would place clothes onto its children, and the children were truly grateful, and they thanked it, and they called it the Lord in return out of admiration, love and respect. As time went by, some children left the sea and decided to live on the lands, and they were happy and content. The children had been trying on more and more different clothes, and there was a special coat that the Lord treasured above all the others, because in its essence it reminded it of itself, and it called the children that wore this coat humanity. After a time, humanity lost how to get in touch with their father, and so they created a father of their own, which was a reflection of themselves. Whereas in truth they were a reflection of their Creator, and the Lord grew sad. But because it had gifted them with free will, grace and reason, it knew that eventually they would reconnect with the source when the time was right for them to do so. As days became years, years became decades, decades became centuries, centuries became millennia, then millennia after millennia the children grew further and further from the truth. So the Lord gave them a very special gift, and this gift was called the soul. Once they had their souls, the Lord gave them another special gift, and that was called death, or crossing over, and why it was a gift, and should be seen in the light of joy, was because when it comes, and it comes to all its children, one is not terminated, one is liberated and set free in an oceanic world of love, peace, freedom and bliss, and they got to see the Lord in person in its own residence. Now, the Lord was happy at the return of all its children with the soul that it had given them, so they could see their Father again in all its splendor and glory. But it wept for its children that were cast away from its influence and love. So it decided to send the children with the souls down again, and give them new coats, and a little wisdom, which was a far memory of where they had been, where they had come from, and to whom that they truly belonged to. So, it was that the children of the light would rain down from heaven and refresh the land of its innocence and arrogance, and the children grew to love the Lord once more, and they found their inner and outer peace within and without their lives again. The Lord was so happy that they had reconnected to it, and that they had found their way, and had reached a state of harmony and bliss on earth, that it decided to celebrate by creating a home next to heaven, which was a place of their own, where they could visit in between wakefulness and sleep to recharge their souls from their life's journeys, or reside after the crossing while they chose a new coat to wear for when they next visited earth. It also created a place beyond the light that was called eternal matter, and it was in this place where the souls would gain their godhood after they had evolved through the cycle of birth and rebirth on the earth and the light, and they all lived in peace and harmony with God. So, on earth as in the heavens, they all lived happily ever after. Now, the moral of the story is, my friends, that one should not fear life or death, for they are a gift from the Lord for you to cherish, and know that deep within your hearts you know that you belong to the Creator, and that you are truly eternal, and that you are embraced by the light. The Traveler's Tale. Once upon a time, there was a pilgrim who came to a small village in the northern lands, who asked the locals if they knew of the whereabouts of the traveler. He said that he had heard tales of his wisdom in all four corners of the world, and that he wanted to hear it first-hand from the traveler himself. The people of the village gathered around and then asked him to share with them the tales that had inspired his mission. So, the pilgrim told them the wisdom that had led to his quest. It is said that he was a witness to all of creation, and that he had had a hand in its plans and destinies. He said that before creation, there was a colony of spiritual entities that lived in a strange and mysterious land, a land where time had no importance and physical forms and things were only there in essence and not in substance. He said that all the entities had unique gifts, which before creation were composites of bliss, and then after creation they were to become known as the physical and spiritual forces of nature. He said that amongst them was a very special entity, and that even though they did not compare each other's gifts to one another, for they just bathed in each other's love and light, that no one could hold back their astonishment at the immense power of this one entity, which had come to be known as the Creator. The entity's unique gift was that it could transform potential energy into existence with its will alone, and it was said that the Creator was the oldest entity, and that it was through the Creator that all the other entities had been fashioned. The entities, although immortal in nature, were finite in number, and it was only a matter of time before they would want to add to the equation by creating their own siblings to increase their number and diversity. So, it was then that just before the dawn of creation, that all the entities had bonded together with the Creator and each other, and that they had created the whole universe in its entirety. He watched as the entities changed their vibration from a subtle to a more dense energy. Like wild geese that fly south for the winter, they merged with creation. He saw the forming of the stars and galaxies like foam on a spiritual lake or ocean, and he witnessed the swirl of the cosmic bodies as the galaxies become unique unto themselves, some galaxies clashing and then combining to form even more diversity as spiral galaxies came to pass. Then, he saw the forming of the solar systems and worlds as the entities sculptured their exclusive qualities into the universe. He passively gazed in awe at the cosmic pyrotechnics, as everything fell into place, and then it was his turn to merge with the universe as they created life. The entities gave up their androgynous ethereal bliss and were born into creation, so as they could bring new souls into fruition. In order not to impose their ways into their offspring, they played only the part of a catalyst, for they were born with a lifetime of amnesia, for it was their life force on its own, untainted, that were to set the fundamental wheels in motion. After that, when they finally went back, they went into the ether where they were to stay in spirit, watching over their flocks as they worked, rested and played. It would be the guiding spiritual forces accompanied by the physical forces and motions of nature along with the Creator that would help life to evolve into all its multiplicity and splendor. The traveler had been considered lucky and special that he was one of the many that were to become intelligent life on this very world in which we all live. The traveler said that in his youth he had intuitively felt that there had been a journey and that he had been inspired to write poems about it and share them with the people of his village. He went on to share them with all the seers and sages from many kingdoms, and he asked them questions about their spiritual source, but they said that they did not believe in his tales, for they were mere fantasy, not mystery. Then, one day his other self told him to stop asking for direction and recognition, for he was not a seer or a visionary. He was an old soul that was spirit come flesh, and he was to share his wisdom and give guidance only to the new and old souls who seek wisdom and truth. He said that his other self had explained that all souls were on a spiritual journey towards perfection, and his other self explained that this journey spiraled out as it alternated between the two realms of existence. It was said that as they mature through their journeys, they gain higher wisdom as to what is going on, and that this higher wisdom creates many divisions in the spiritual realms in which they all reside, which ascends upwards to the eternal wisdom of the older souls and the Creator itself. Of course, when one reaches this ultimate level, they become guardian angels, elders or guides, and are no longer reborn into the physical realms unless they chose otherwise with their free will. But the ones that chose to stay in the higher realms would spiral out, for even then their journeys had only just begun. However, when the maturing souls decide that they wish to be reborn back into the physical dimension, they forget what they have accomplished and learned from birth, and all that they remember is that to search and to listen fulfills their life with hope and reason. If this was not the way, and they remembered their life between life experiences, they would lose their unique personal identities and qualities that they have gained by their ascendance from their survival, basic needs and instincts. They would be nothing other than a spiritual reflection, or an emulation of their spiritual parents, and the reason for not remembering their past physical incarnations would be that they would be confused as to what life and family their loyalties would truly belong. Every now and then some souls would remember their past lives, or their life between lives, and they would have a haunting, lonely life of wanting and confusion. Nonetheless, the far memories would usually diminish naturally in their youth if they were not brought up or discussed. If the far memories did not fade early on, they were usually aided by their parents as they got them to let the past life go and get on with the now, or the present life, by saying goodbye to their past selves in some kind of simplistic farewell ritual or ceremony. His other self explained to him that not remembering his past life straight away, because of all the complexities and contradictions that came with it, had been the reason for his own gradual awakening from his spiritual amnesia. Though now he had gained his own identity, he would never forget again, as he traverses from vessel to vessel on his never-ending spiritual life, even if his future parents tried to suppress it. He was told that the survival of his memory of the journey was his unique gift, and that he was alone on his planet, as were other old souls on other planets. It was said that the traveler would reincarnate from place to place and from time to time, and that he was to teach the needy. Then he would cross over at his physical death, and reappear sometimes 2 generations on, in a different place. For it is his purpose to share his personal memories and wisdom to the seekers of the truth to every culture. In so doing, there would be different national and cultural strains of his teachings, and that is why you have so many variations of God, although fundamentally in their essence, they would all be the same. So, it is said that if you search and find the traveler, that he will teach you his teachings. They say that although we all have our own distinctive qualities and personal journeys on which we have embarked, that he remembers the goal of all eternity before and after creation, and that when and only when one sits down and listens to his teachings in word of mouth, one is said to remember their soul's past desires and journey. It is only then that one can jump off the spiritual cycle of birth, generation, maturity, old age, death and rebirth, and awake to and then fulfill their true spiritual purpose and destiny, which is to discover their unity with God. The people of the village said that many a pilgrim has been in search of the same, and that they stay for a spell before heading further north, never to return. So, the pilgrim stayed the night, got up early and had breakfast, bought some provisions for his journey, and then went on his way. The Frog Story. Once upon a time, there was a land of frogs. Within this land, each frog was made out of 7 constituents. If you close your eyes, that is the frog of thought. Open them again, all about you is the frog of activity. Then, just behind the frog of thought and the frog of activity, you have the frog of conscience. Behind the frog of conscience, you have the frogs of darkness and light. Darkness being the want to own and control the physical world, accompanied with a refusal to value any belief other than one's own. Light being love, virtuous behavior, goodwill, empathy, objective consciousness, opening one's mind to universal wisdom and clarity of mind and soul. Now, let us say the frog of thought perceives somebody drop a purse on the floor, and the frog that has dropped it is unaware of its loss. If the onlooker gathers up and keeps the purse, although it has gained material wealth, it feels a hollow feeling deep into the pit of its stomach, and the frog of conscience takes this energy and feeds it to the frog of darkness. If, however, the onlooker alerts the frog of its would-be loss, although it gets no material reward as such, it does get a lovely warm feeling in the pit of its stomach, which the frog of conscience feeds to the frog of light. Now, on through life they go, picking up darkness and light. Then, there comes a time when all 5 frogs have to go to sleep. When this occurs, the frog of thought, activity, conscience, darkness and light collapse down into either the frog of darkness, the frog of light, or a cocktail of the 2, depending on the lifestyle in which they have led. What happens next is that the frog of will disposes of all the darkness, and then reactivates the frog of light, thought, activity and conscience, as it places it gently back into the realm of life. Round and round, they go, picking up darkness and light, up and down, shedding the darkness repeatedly until finally, when the time comes for all 5 frogs to go to sleep, all you have left is a frog of light. Now, the frog of will, having no darkness to dispose of, becomes as one with the frog of light to become the frog of pure spirit, and then off it goes to the land of perfection, which only means completion, to live happily ever after.